What's going on, Warriors? Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I'm your host, Chris. Today we have a returning guest. He's been on here a couple times. Wanted to bring him on for this one because I feel like him and I we gel pretty well on most of the things that we struggle with, and we could relate. And this episode is entitled "Letting Go of Your Anger." Vince, how's it going, man?
Doing good, brother. Doing good. How are you?
Good, man. Glad to have you on here, and I know this is a topic that I'm sure you can relate to in a lot of ways, like myself, especially going through the trials and tribulations of life. Before we dig into today's podcast, I just want to shout out that today is International Men's Day. So, another ironic day of the month. We're recording a podcast. When I did my podcast with Lee, ironically enough, the day after I recorded, it was International Bully Awareness Day. So shout out again to Lee for hopping on the podcast, and thank you to everybody, including yourself, Vince, that listened to that podcast. It meant a lot to me.
Definitely.
So International Men's Day celebrates worldwide the positive value men bring to the world, their families, and communities, and also highlights positive role models and raises awareness of men's well-being. Me and you have gone around the ringer quite a few times about men's mental health and how important that stuff is, man. So I'm very passionate about getting this message out there. Guys, the ones that do listen to this podcast, it's okay to feel the way that you're feeling, and it's okay to talk about the shit you're going through. You don't have to put on this whole macho man facade and, just brush things off, because, you matter just as much as anybody else. And I'm very, very stern on that statement. So, and for anybody who has heard about this documentary, it's called Stutz. Basically, what the documentary is it's a 2-year spanning therapy session with Jonah Hill, the actor, and his therapist. Basically, they filmed all their sessions from a little bit after Jonah lost his brother, and just everything that he was going through and being vulnerable. And we don't really see that out of Hollywood too much anymore, man. It's all makeup, it's all wigs and everything else, and just not wanting to be vulnerable at all. So for anybody who is as passionate about mental health as I am, highly recommend that documentary for everybody. Simply just because the message of mental health it's important. It's important to be as raw and as real as you can be. So the reasoning I wanted to do this podcast, except for the obvious, basically, I have this Twitter account that's strictly for wrestling. And for anybody who knows me, very passionate about wrestling. I got a little too deep into that Twitter account and, basically turned me into something that I'm not. And my passion for the wrestling industry, combined with the anger that I had internally, just kind of made me toxic a little bit in the community. And it's never something I wanted to happen, and it's unfortunately costed me a friendship. And for that, I don't want anybody to think that I'm something that I'm not. I hold myself accountable for all my flaws and all my mistakes. And, for anybody who's listening, I do apologize for any kind of trolling that I've done, or any kind of, I don't want to say bullying, because I've never really bullied anybody, but it was just more so engaging in the tribalism of the wrestling community. So again, I support a mental health message, and with that Twitter account, I wasn't doing the same exact thing that I'm doing outside of that Twitter account. So again, I do apologize to all my listeners. I will continue to be better, continue to try and get better. And again, every day is a learning experience. It's progress, not perfection, man. So let's dig into to today's podcast, because I know it's a very special one for me. And having Vince on here always is good, just to get an extra insight. So let's go ahead and dig into today's session. So what is anger? It's basically, like your instinctive response to any kind of threats. It's combined with stress, family problems, or financial issues. I don't know what extent you feel your anger on, Vince, but I know for me, a lot of my anger stems from the family struggles I've had. The basically non-existent relationship I've had with my dad growing up, and uh, just having a very rocky and rough relationship with my mom got a lot of anger in me, especially when my parents were divorced.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
for you, where do you think your anger ties in? Because I know it's a little bit of, I'm sure what you go through with jobs, whatever it is.
you know, stemming from a young age, yeah, there's a lot of anger. There was a lot of anger towards my parents, mainly my father and mother. They were divorced when I was like 1, 2, however young I was. I don't know. I always get a different fucking story every time. But um, there's anger towards that. There's anger towards my dad dying when I was 16, me getting shot when I was 17, uh, going to jail, doing stupid shit. Like there's all that. Uh, it's just not locking up, but like pinpointing where that anger is coming from has always been hard for me because sometimes it feels like it's a lot, like it's always there and it's never gone away, which I still feel that sometimes. Most of the time, I'm angry with myself, but yeah,
Yeah, it's like you said, it's kind of hard to pinpoint when that anger may have started, and I was unfortunately, I experienced my parents divorcing at an age where I was aware of what happened and just trying to process it. Going into middle school, going into high school, moving around so much, it just internalized a lot of anger inside of me. I was very quiet in school, and that quietness brought a lot of self-harm to myself. It encouraged negative self-talk and stuff like that. And fast forward to now, man, like I can identify what pisses me off. I can identify what genuinely like makes me hot. And now I think I can pretty much channel it down to just my family. My family makes me severely angry. It's whether it's miscommunication or just feeling like I'm being left out of any discussions that happen. I can't even tell you how many times family plans were made and I wasn't told about them.
right.
And it makes you feel some type of way, because that's happened to me so many times to where it's just like, oh well, so and so forgot to tell you. Okay, we're 5 years into this and you forgot to tell me all of a sudden. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's a pattern, and those patterns of just bullshit just make you angry. And
yeah,
I wish our parents had what we have now available to us, so they can communicate, so they can talk about what they're going through and all that shit instead of internalizing it and then projecting onto us.
I do that a lot. I still have a hard time communicating when I'm upset, especially with the people that I'm upset with, because I have a thing about confrontation.
Yeah.
Uh, which I mean, if you've seen me out in the street, I'm fucking 6'2", 230 pounds, tatted up, pierced up. Like you wouldn't think, oh, this guy's afraid of confrontation, but nah, I'm gonna run away from it. Uh, so like I internalize a lot, and I do project it out, and that's ruined a lot of relationships and friendships that I've had because of that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's just mainly that cycle that was created for us. It's seeing the examples from our peers that we've had growing up, and it's just something that neither you or I can change out of those people, but what we can do is try and do better. I mean, you coming on these podcasts from the first one to now, I mean, we've having more of a conversation in the last 3-4 months than we have when we first met. You know, we can talk about the shit that we're going through, and like we were talking about on Snapchat yesterday, we can communicate through music of what we're feeling. You know, I have I think it's a bad habit because I feel like I annoy people with it, but I communicate through movie quotes. Like I literally cannot shut that part of my brain off. Like every time, like one little word, and it's crazy. Like one little word will remind me of a movie. One sound can remind me of a scene in a movie. And when we're playing Call of Duty, you know, I'll be on there with my brother, and he'll make a comment, and everybody, you know, just continue talking, whatever. And then I'll say to my brother, I'm like, you know, that reminded me of that scene from a movie we haven't seen in like 30 years. You know, it's just crazy. You know, I have found ways to communicate my anger through music and through movies because, like I was telling you yesterday, it's essentially my safe haven. It's the place that I've only ever felt comfortable enough to express that anger.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
And I every time I share my music taste with people, they're like, "Doesn't this music make you mad?" Like, you know what kind of music I listen to. So there's a lot of hard music in there, probably more hard music than anything else. But a lot of those people just look at it like people screaming. Like, dude, if you listen to the lyrics that any of these guys and girls put into their music, like I know some of it's hard to understand because some of those roars and some of those screams are really deep and hard to understand. There's a lot of pain, a lot of anger behind what they say, but you can relate. You and I can relate to that shit.
It's because they're listening to the sound. They're not listening to the message.
Right.
Me and my sister had to talk about that one time because, like, she listens to like Shore and all that, and we were sitting there talking. Like, people will sit there and the people judge you on it. They think you're, you know, if you dress a certain way, like these people do, they think you're a Satanist or whatever, and they start saying all sorts of things, and they don't know the actual message behind the music that's being, because most of it's not, oh, hail Satan, da 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 da. It's fucking like these guys were beat down,
right,
and press it out, and that's the best part about it.
And it's crazy that you bring up the whole judgment by what we wear, thinking that we that we hail Satan, all that stuff. Because I remember when I was younger, maybe about like 15, 16 years old, and I was still wearing a lot of band t-shirts. I still kind of do, but not nearly as much as I used to. And I remember going to my grandparents, and my grandparents are so judgmental. Like, they're awful when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, my mom turned out to be the same way. She's very judgmental. See somebody walking down the street, oh, so and so looks like they're on this, or oh my god, they're wearing this, so they probably da 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 da. They're those kind of people. And I wore what was it, a Rockstar Mayhem Fest shirt to their house. It was like a melted skull and had all the band names and all that stuff. And I remember my grandma making like a snide ass comment about it and saying how, oh my god, why would you wear that here? Like, it doesn't look good. It looks like nobody would talk to you wearing that kind of stuff. And you look at how society is now, where people are still like that, not nearly as bad as they used to be, but now we have TikTok for those idiots to have a platform on. It's like, oh, well, if you listen to this or you support this, oh my god, it's all up in arms kind of thing. And
yeah,
for anybody who's watching this on YouTube, this is like a stress ball for me, so I apologize for it being on camera. But I feel all the judgment that you and I have faced growing up also contributed to that anger. Also because like anything that we do has never felt like it was enough, because we were trying to do stuff that made us feel comfortable, and people trying to mold us into their image only pissed us off more. And I don't think you and I growing up had the right resources to get rid of that anger, to be able to channel what we were going through.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I went to anger management twice. Neither time helped because I always felt like I was getting judged.
Oh, dude, anger management is.
Now I gotta hear this. Come on. Spill the beans.
I've taken anger management. I've taken cognitive behavior therapy. Uh, it's
Okay, so explain to me what the behavior therapy consists of.
so that is basically to. It's supposed to show you how the mind works.
Yeah.
And uh, make you see where it was while I was on probation. Is to make you see where your mind is making the wrong decisions for what you should be doing, and they try to mold it to get it
So they're basically trying to like change your way of thinking, kind of thing. Okay, so I didn't know if it was like the same thing as cognitive therapy as it is behavior. So okay,
I mean, it works. Yes. Did I pay a lot of enough? No, I didn't.
yeah,
I really. But in the anger management, that was also while I was on probation because I pissed off my PO and she said, "You're not gonna come home yet." And I was like, okay, well." Then I kind of yelled at her and shit, and then got some anger management signed up too. But it don't help.
yeah,
It doesn't help unless you want it to help.
fair.
Same as regular therapy.
See, I look at when I went to anger management, I kind of look at it the same way that I look at outpatient therapy. I was paired up with a really awful counselor. I hope I hope she's great in the field that she was specialized in. She was a counselor for gambling addicts, and I went there. I went to outpatient therapy after a suicide attempt. Like 1 + 1 there, it's not, you know what I mean? Like we're at 1 + 1 = 75 or something right now. Like nothing makes sense here. You know what I mean? And when I went to anger management, I think a couple of years before that, I just remember her having me make a collage. Like that's all I remember. I don't remember it ever helping me in my anger because I'm 30 years old and I don't want to say I'm an angry person because I'm not, but I know I can get very passionate about certain things and I know my ticks. I know what sets me off, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely know, and that's something I tried to tell my ex too. Like I know when I'm about to get set off.
Yeah.
I don't know how to communicate that. I don't know how to tell somebody, "Hey, dude, if you don't shut the fuck up, I'm about to blow the fuck up." Like,
Right.
pardon my French, but
No,
like,
no, it's okay. No worries.
I've never had that, and like, I've been trying to figure it out because like, I love my kid to death. I do.
Yeah.
Some days, like, because now they're in Arizona and shit, so I've had some time to actually sit here and reflect. But like, there was some days where I'm like, my guy, if you don't back the fuck up,
Right.
you will get. Nothing's gonna happen, but I'm gonna have to walk away.
Right.
And uh yeah, no, like I know my triggers and shit, and it's always something that goes back to my fucking childhood for some
Right.
reason. Everything after that, like after 1920, if it's cool, but fucking before that, it's like all this shit that was ingrained. I'm trying to sit here and fucking rewire, like, and it's shit that I see happen that before when I grew up would have been a fucking big ass issue, right? But it's not because we've learned that the shit that was a big issue, then it really wasn't. It wasn't.
Right.
But that's normally my triggers is fucking there's something happening that reminds me of a time that I got yelled at when I was a kid. So I'm trying to fucking
Have your kids been able to like identify what makes them mad, or are they're still too young to like identify that kind of stuff?
So we had a little paper
Yeah.
that has all the emotions on it. And Luca, he's 3, he's the oldest. Otto, he's just now walking. I missed it. Dude's walking like a champ now. But Luca can go up to that poster, and if you ask him how he's feeling, he can point to the emotion that he has at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, and he understands it. And like what we tried to do, and it's worked, and it's helped to reflect on like ourselves is like anger is more of a blanket emotion because it covers a whole broad area.
Absolutely.
So when he says he's angry, we try to pinpoint, okay, are you angry because you're sad, or are you angry because you're hurt, or what's going on to make that? And it's actually it's really helped for me too.
That's awesome. You said he's 3?
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's
Well, because
crazy that a 3-year-old can identify that kind of stuff.
we started him on it
Yeah.
at like 2.5, and
Right.
it sits on the wall where he can reach it. He can go to it.
Let me
And
ask you something. When you were in elementary school, and I don't remember if they had them in middle school too. I don't think they did. When we were in elementary school, did they have the card changing like discipline thing? Like you had green being good, yellow's a warning, red means you're in trouble, and then black means you're going to the principal.
I don't think so.
So that must have been just a Florida thing.
No, I grew up. No.
Yeah. It's crazy that every school did the disciplining stuff differently.
Oh.
Sorry, something just fell. Um, and
Gotta,
it's just one of those things where I don't feel like it was as effective as they wanted it to be, kind of thing, because it's that reward versus oh my god, what the hell is the word? I guess discipline versus reward. I know I'm forgetting the psychological term, but I think you know what I'm saying.
yeah.
Like if you're good, you reward them. If they're bad, you don't give them anything. I don't
Yeah.
remember what the hell that was called. Um, but it's good that you mentioned the blanket emotion thing, because anger is intertwined with so many different things, and it's not technically a mental health diagnosis. So I wrote down what anger ties into. So we have depression. That's the obvious one.
Right.
You have OCD, which I had to think about that for a second, because OCD and anger, I guess when you screw something up, who's somebody that's super OCD, they get angry. And I know for the longest time, all of my movies were all alphabetically ordered, and I have like 700 DVDs. And then it just got to a point where I couldn't stop buying DVDs, and I was pissing myself off because I'm like, all right, I got to reorganize everything now. And yeah,
Yeah.
now I just have 2 bins of DVDs thrown in there. So it's just like, fuck.
That does make sense with the OCD thing, because like there are things where I'm OCD about, and if I don't do it, I get pissed. Like if I
Like you
don't do
could
it,
like have like a pattern, like a what's the word? I guess pattern that you follow every day.
yeah, yeah, no, like if I go out of routine on how I start my morning, I'm pissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be. It's just that like that one
It
minor
screws your whole day up.
yeah.
Yeah. Then you have alcohol abuse, which the mental health condition, I don't know. This is always one of those subjects that I feel everybody feels differently on. Alcohol abuse, I guess it's a mental health condition, but it's preventable, right? Like, it's a choice. Okay, do you think addiction is a choice, or do you think it's a disease? Like, genuine question, because I struggle answering that myself.
I go both ways on it.
Yeah, like I feel like there's no right or wrong answer there.
No, because like myself, I'm an alcoholic. I will admit that to the day I die. I will drink, but it's once every fuck 8, 10, 12, 16 months. Like it's not every it used to be every day. It used to be all 24/7 for like 3 to 4 years straight. But then it got too much. But like that was a choice. That was most definitely a choice. Now there are people that like they get so bad into it that their body does not function. That's where I think it turns it into a disease because it. I've seen people where they were so bad and so bad off that when they stopped, their body started shutting down.
Right. Like, okay, you look at somebody who is addicted to doing crack, and you look at somebody who's addicted to doing gambling. Gambling is an addiction, whether people look at it like that or not. It's 100% an addiction. I know a lot of people are really bad gambling addicts. And then you have a crack addiction, which, you know, that's more substance than it is a physical item or something like that. But
yeah,
like I said, I'm with you on both answers. Like, it's hard to say which one's which, because I've had people who were close to my circle who passed away of OD, who passed away of drunk driving. That's a choice. Drunk driving is a choice.
oh yeah.
And, you know, I know a lot that might rub people the wrong way, but I've lost a brother from a drunk driver, and she chose to drive on that day while she was intoxicated, and she took my brother's life. So it's one of those subjects where, again, I guess anger can play a part in when you talk about stuff like that. But I don't know. The alcohol abuse, I kind of put in like quotations because I wasn't really sure that's a mental health condition, but I guess it kind of makes sense in the long scheme. ODD, which is the oppositional defiant disorder, and this is one of those terms I wasn't aware of. Like, I didn't know it was a thing. And yes, the abbreviations are odd. So it threw me for a whirl on this one. But basically, it's like lashing out on people, like having like implosions with people and just misbehaving. But then that also goes in the same subject as IED, which is the imminent explosive disorder. That I know for a fact. I've met people who have that, who will just out of nowhere lash out at people and have to go to therapy because of those things. And it's one of those things where they're wired weird. And I think they have to take medication for that, because I know IED is that's like an extreme of anger. Same with the ODD. I would assume is basically the same thing.
Be almost level as like BPD or some shit.
Yeah, basically. And then you got bipolar, which, you know, I think that's a given. And then this one, I'm really glad they put it here. I don't think it's a mental health condition. I think it's just something that we have to go through, is grief. I don't consider that a condition. I consider it something that we have to go through eventually. You know, unfortunately, we all suffer loss. And again, to my earlier comment about that Stutz documentary, he brings up grief. I can't talk enough about that documentary, man. It's so good. If you haven't watched it yet, highly recommend it.
Most definitely.
So let's start with the obvious. Let's start with depression. because I feel depression just kind of makes us all feel crazy. We always think that we're batshit because we're feeling things that not other people may or may not feel. And I know a lot of people like to throw that word depression around. It's like, are you depressed? Are you sad? Because feeling sad and being depressed are two whole different things. Like, yes, depression is feeling sad, but it's also a whole other thing as well. Depression doesn't look like just sad.
Yeah. See, I'm having that issue with myself because, like, now I'm just, I don't know. I need to go see a psychiatrist at some point to figure out what I have. Still haven't done. But, like, it's. I'm at that point where I'm like, do I actually have that, or am I just sad a lot?
Right.
I don't know.
I feel that's something that this society has a really bad habit of is self-diagnosing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's severely dangerous for a lot of people to do. Because you can't just say you're feeling one way and then, I'm going to take this medicine, I'm going to feel better, and then you get sick because of something you don't have. You know what I mean? So it's always important if you're feeling some type of way and you're not really sure, to my listeners and to you obviously as well, Vince, obviously go to a doctor. If you're feeling, just that type of way and you want to actually figure it out. That's no pressure to anybody listening. That's more so me giving a shit about what's going on in your life and what you're going through, because self-diagnosing yourself is something that could lead to something more serious.
Oh yeah, you'll go down so many rabbit holes, bro. It's ridiculous.
Like I never knew that hypochondriacs were like a thing. Like I always thought that was just like exaggerated. Like I never knew that was an actual thing. I've met people who are like, I can't go outside because if I step outside, I'm gonna step on a nail. If I do this, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna feel this way. It's like, holy shit! Like I'm pretty sure like that's anxiety. Like I feel like hypo. What is the word? Is it hypochondria? Right? Is that the right term? Yeah. I feel like that's like basically anxiety to like the extreme. Could be wrong on that though. And then, so I grew up with a bipolar mom. I don't know if you know anybody bipolar. Like an actual like diagnosed bipolar, not like somebody saying, "Oh, well, I'm bipolar."
No, I mean nobody that's actually came out and told me they are, but and I could, but I don't really know.
Yeah, so basically, bipolar looks like can be like an hour of just like having a nice conversation with somebody, and then 5 minutes later, just lashing out about something that happened 10 years ago. And it's like, I hate using the word crazy, but experiencing it firsthand is fucking crazy because I never knew it was something that severe until I sat in my room for 3 hours getting completely degraded and talked down to by my mom. And then like the next day she like completely like quote unquote forgets about it, like nothing happened. I mean, obviously I know she's a narcissist too, but bipolar's an animal when it comes to anger. Because you really don't know what side of that personality you're going to get from that person, like an actual diagnosed bipolar person. And I know bipolar kind of goes down like a rabbit hole in itself. There's one on here. I don't know why. I guess I might have accidentally missed it. ADHD is another one that has anger in it. I don't. Do you have ADHD, or do you know anybody with ADHD?
I know people that my sister has it. Okay, so here's the backstory. My sister has it.
Yeah.
All our cousins that we share have it. our uncles, like it's very, very prominent
Right.
on my mom's side of the family. I may or may not have it. I don't know. I haven't been to a doctor.
Yeah.
I I want to go, but I don't want to go at the same time because I don't want to like leave. I don't want to go there with no list and then come out with a list that's like fucking 10 pages long.
Right. They can just got like an A through Z list for you.
But no, my
Why
sister.
does it say on here I'm a zebra?
uh, she has it, and we talked, and she
Now,
told me
like
she's
growing
like,
up with her, did you ever experience her being like angry a lot or have like any kind of anger?
so I didn't actually grow up with her.
Oh, okay.
On the divorce side, she was with my mom,
Right.
whereas I was with my dad, and we have two separate dads.
Okay.
Share a mom, and yeah, I can see it because the way I understand it, and I might be shit, but like your brain's wired a different way, right?
Right.
You can there's a way about processing things that they have and or that they can do, and I've heard it explained where like they can. It's like that fucking song I sent you the other day. That uh the mind blower, the mind
Right.
melter,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
where you can hear every different fucking part of it, but you can focus on every single part at the same time, but know where they're at differently.
Yeah.
And that explained to me on it. And I can see where anger can come into play on that because after a while and having that much stimulation is probably going to make you fucking flip.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. That definitely that makes a lot of sense. Um, let's talk about the physical symptoms of anger because I feel like the symptoms of just anger in general, people don't realize the damage that anger causes besides the obvious physical harm that you could do to people. Apparently, well, not apparently, the research I did, physical symptoms, your testosterone levels and your cortisol levels, which basically your cortisol levels is your fight or flight hormones, both of those start spiking out of control. So once you have that happen, man, like once you start messing with anything physically in the body, things start getting contorted and you start feeling pain in places you've never felt pain before. And then you have to go to the doctors for that. And just anger is something that not a lot of people, I feel like it's not talked about enough. We're a culture of, trying to acknowledge that mental health is not a problem. It's something that needs to be brought up and put more in a bigger spotlight. But that also comes with anger too, because anger is something that ruins friendships, it ruins relationships. I mean, it ruins childhoods. I was very angry as a kid, and I took it out on my brother and sister, and it was never something that was intentional. It was more so I didn't know where to channel my anger, if that makes sense.
No,
And go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just saying, and now that I'm an adult and I'm not in a house full of people anymore, all that anger is internalized, and that anger is not going towards people. But when it comes out, it's just like I spout it. It's just kind of like free fire. None of it's controlled, and it's something I haven't addressed in therapy yet, and it's something I plan on doing. I just gotta be ready for it. But I think this podcast is a good start to acknowledge that I know I have anger problems, and I know that stems from trauma that I've experienced. Um, if you've ever gotten to that point of being angry, have you ever felt like your body wasn't right after, like you lash out at, a friend, or you lashed out at in a current relationship, right? Your parents or anything. Did you ever not feel right, like physically?
Every time.
Yeah.
when I we both know like my main way to get rid of my anger, get rid of my like stress and shit was going to the gym. I stopped going to the gym. I started internalizing everything, keeping a lot of shit in, and that's what started causing a lot of. I wouldn't say it was starting to cause a lot of issues because there was already issues there. It just got set off to the side for the longest time. I like I'm not a confrontational person, so when I get angry and I just start spouting shit out, and I don't say things. I say things that I don't mean. I say things that I
You
just
kind of
want them
like
to.
black out when you say it.
Yeah, and I know what I'm saying, and I know what I'm saying afterwards because right after the confrontation, I know in my mind I fucked up.
Right.
Like my body tells me you fucked up there. My stomach drops a little bit. I I feel sick, but it's already been done. That
Right.
damage has been done. So the only way to fix that is to apologize and get moved past it. Not really move past it, but like show that,
Come up with like a resolution kind of thing.
yeah. But how do you come up with a resolution when you just got done basically telling somebody they're a piece of shit?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't like doing that. I don't know why I do it. Uh, that's one of my toxic traits is like if I if I feel like I'm going to get too close to somebody, I'm going to piss them off so they go away. Or uh, I'll say something. You know, when we broke up and shit, I was saying mean, hurtful shit, right? I was upset. Doesn't give me the right to say what I said, but I did. And
Yeah.
that wasn't cool.
Yeah. I have had similar incidents where, oh God, when was it? I think it was 2013 was the last time that I actually went off on somebody. And it wasn't like one of those things where I was mad for no reason, so I just went off on her. It was one of those things where I have a really bad habit, and I will openly admit this. I have a really bad habit of forgiving people for bullshit and internalizing and just storing it up. Then when it gets to a point where I've had enough of getting fucked over, I lash out. But when I lash out, I know what I want to say and I know what to bring up. Like I'm never one of those kinds of people who would be like, if you wouldn't have this, it wasn't for me. I'm never like that ever.
Right.
I've done that one time, only once, and it was because this person was being the world's largest hypocrite and just being an asshole to me, and I was done. And I basically showed them the facts of everything that happened. I said, listen, I did this for you. I did this for you. I made sure you could get this so you have this. Like,
Right.
don't sit here and try and make me to be out the asshole when I have proof of everything that you've done. And they got quiet and I hung up. They tried calling me back and saying they're sorry. I said, listen, I'm usually a very forgiving person, but I'm not going to be walked on by people that I've had enough of. And I try so hard. And here's another bad trait of mine. I try so hard to be liked by everybody. Super toxic, by the way.
Yes.
Super toxic trait of mine. And when I'm saying that out loud, I know a lot of people who are listening are like, oh, bro, there's nothing wrong with being a good person and trying to get everybody to like you. But when you're trying to mold yourself for everybody else to like you, you're literally looking like that guy from Spy Kids. You have 3 different heads. You have 20 different fingers. And you're just all over the place because you're pulling yourself in so many different directions for people to like you. You don't know who the hell you are. And you're just stuck there in the center to be like, who the fuck am I? You look in the mirror and like, I don't like who I've become. I have tried so hard to stop being so, I don't want to say stop being good because that's just not in me to do that. I've tried my very best to not change anything about myself to get everybody to like me. Like last night, I had a confrontation with somebody who has treated me like shit consistently over the last 6 months, and I finally told her off. I said, "Listen, like, you want to sit here and say this, this, and this is wrong with me, but let's not forget that you did this and this and this, and those big thises are this big, while mine are very minuscule."
Right.
And again, and I apologize for coming off sounding angry, but it's just one of those things where it takes a lot for me to break on somebody, because I'm just really good at just like compartmentalizing all the shit that I'm going through. It's like, listen, I have my own bullshit I got to worry about. I'm not trying to worry about your bullshit too. And I try way too hard to take on everybody else's shit and then try to deal with mine too. So I guess I'm a whole ass red flag carnival over here.
Nah. The um that the how did you put it? You
Which
it's
part of it?
almost,
Try to be liked by everybody.
yeah, it's almost a people pleaser thing, right?
Exactly. Yep.
I relate to that because will I try to be everybody's friend, and I've lost myself along the way. I really have. That's why this time alone to myself has given me some time to reflect. Like, this moving back to Arizona is gonna make or break some things, and I'm fine with that at this point in time. Like, it is what it is.
Right.
But I did the people pleasing thing I still do it. I mean, it's a hard habit to break, but
It's
I'm
the way that my brain processes it is, I didn't have anybody like me growing up.
mm-hmm.
And my therapist has put it to me the best is, I try to be that island, I try to be that lighthouse for everybody who's going through something, and you eventually start getting hurt yourself because you're trying to take on the world's problems, and meanwhile all your stuff you're going through is not being changed. You're I don't want to say I'm self-destructing, because I'm not, but you're leaving things unattended, and just the demons in your head that you got going on become louder.
You're putting everything else's on the front burner while your stuff's going to the back burner.
Right.
But more and more shit keeps getting put on the front burner, so the back burner isn't moving to the front. I get it.
Right. I get it. Yeah, and I've done a really good job of just trying to stay to myself and try to avoid having any problems develop in my life. If my last therapy session, I think I still have it right down. I didn't have really a lot of negatives talking about that session. I try to balance out my therapy sessions. I have my positives and my negatives, and usually, and I'm not really ashamed to admit this because I'm open to talking about therapy now, but I usually have a lot of impactful negative shit that far outweighs the positives, no matter how many positives there are. That's one of the first sessions that I didn't have anything severely negative until I read like one comment that I said to my therapist, and basically it was after I left the dentist, and I was really angry at myself that growing up I wasn't given a lot of guidance after we hit 18. It was just kind of like, oh well, you turned 18, you got to figure all this shit out. You got to figure out how to do your taxes, you got to figure out how to pay bills, you got to figure out doctors and dentists and all this bullshit.
My God.
And this is the first time I'm saying this on mic, and I know it's a little dark, and I'm gonna apologize now, but I basically said to my good friend Caleb, I said, we're all gonna die sometime, why not sooner? I have never felt that low in a really long time, and I was just so discouraged after I left the dentist. And it's just like, I'm doing everything right now. I was trying so hard just to survive the last 10 years that I didn't go to the doctors. I didn't go to the dentist. And now that I'm starting to go to the doctors and the dentist, being an adult the last couple of years, it's just everything hitting me in the back of the head like a brick. And you start attacking yourself, and attacking yourself turns into that anger that's always been there. You can't get rid of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's your physical symptom right there too, is, that shit goes right into your head. Anything that happens to you physically goes right into your head,
Yeah.
Let's talk about the emotional symptoms of anger. So you got the obvious. You got your irritability. I think I said that word right. Frustration, anxiety, rage, stress, feeling overwhelmed, and guilt. I also put in there because for some reason I think this was written before it was something I knew I struggle with. It's sensory overload. I've noticed this a lot in the last 6 months about myself, is if I'm having a rough day at work, and that's the overwhelmed part, any sound, because I work at home and my computer notifications, any sound sets me off, and then my body starts getting really warm and I get mad as fuck, and I'll hear my phone go off and I'll hear everything go off, and it's like, bro, I'm getting so angry, and I'll be on the microphone on my PlayStation with people, and I'll have to turn my mic all the way down because I'll get pissed off. I said, bro, who the fuck is doing this with paper? Who's chewing in the mic? Like, bro, sensory overload is something I never knew I struggled with until it's gotten this bad. And I don't know if you have ever struggled with sensory overload, but Jesus God, I don't wish that on anybody.
Oh my God.
Do you work in like a factory setting?
No, I work in a mechanic shop, so
Okay.
it's loud fucking tools most of the time.
And does that ever overwhelm you at all? The sounds?
Every day.
Really?
So I've never, and I still don't know how to explain that, but like I would come home and like my wife was here, the kids are here, and then everybody's trying to talk, and I'm just trying to do some dishes, and I'd just be like, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck. And like I know that's not the best reaction, but like I never knew how to explain, and I didn't even realize that it was a fucking issue until a couple days ago.
Right.
I mean, I saw a fucking TikTok about sensory overload or some shit, and I was like, that makes sense. I'm not saying that I have, it makes sense. And it's weird.
It's one of those things where you don't realize how serious it gets until you're like at the very top of it. And I've gotten to the point where I had to walk out of the house. Like I told my team, like, listen, I need to get away from this computer because I'm about to hit the wall.
I have headphones in now at work. So, or I have a speaker that it's loud as fuck.
Yeah.
So I just turn that bitch all the way up where I can tune in on that and not think about everything else going on, and it helps ground me. The music is what helps ground me. Like I get home, I'll throw music on and I'll probably listen to it till I go to sleep. It just is what it is. But it me stay
Just say it helps you feel grounded.
Yeah.
Right. So let me ask you something. Do you think that sensory overload could also stem from trauma? Because I have trauma from the dentist when I was a kid, right? When I had one of my cavities filled when I was, I'd probably say maybe like 12, 13 years old. They used a goddamn crank on my jaw to keep it open. And I swear on my life, every time I go to the dentist, I'm like traumatized anytime I hear a drill. Like any kind of like drill sound, like just something in my brain just like sets off like, yeah, I don't like this shit one bit. So like, do you ever hear a certain sound or smell a certain smell that like instantly sets off something in your brain? It's like, yeah, that brings me back to something that happened X amount of years ago, and I don't like that shit one bit.
There is. I don't know exactly what it like. I know there's sometimes where, I mean, I'm 3-4 states away from where I grew up, so nothing should be the same. Nothing.
Yeah, right.
Different. Smells like cow shit out here. Like it should all be different. And like I know I'll be doing something and I'm like, the fuck is that? Like what the fuck is that? And it'll set you on edge.
Yeah.
And keep you on edge. And then that for me, like it doesn't, I don't register, like I'm on edge, but I don't do anything about it. So then I get home later and it's like, then the other shit happens and I'm just like, motherfucker.
Right. Totally. I can definitely relate. So I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with anxiety too. If you ever get like anxious, do you ever feel yourself getting angry? I know I felt angry a couple times when I was anxious, but not like, it's not very common for me with anxiety.
No, I don't ever get angry with anxiety. I don't think. I just get really anxious.
Yeah, it just kind of like puts you in like a shell within yourself. And
I guess I get angry when like I get to that point where like I don't want to leave the house. That's how bad it gets. So I'm like, but I want to go do shit.
right. So it's
I don't
kind
want
of like you're, I guess, angry with yourself for being feeling that way, kind of thing. Um, I feel like rage is an interesting one. Because I don't know if I've ever felt rage like I have them when I was working for Publix in a retail store. So I don't know. I feel like when we're talking about anger, rage, it may be more common than I think, but I don't think I've ever uh experienced a rage too often if I'm angry. Like I'll be angry and my body will stay hot for like an hour or 2 hours, but like I don't really consider myself to ever experience rage. I definitely could be wrong though.
food service will change your mind, my guy.
Literally, bro. Every time somebody tells me that, oh, Publix is such a great place to work for, I'm like, bro, work there for a month and then call me.
uh no, so I had a reputation when I first got into the chef game back in Dalhart when I was working at this steakhouse out there. And uh I had a reputation for making servers cry. Like they would cry. And I didn't care who it was. I knew everything that was going on.
Yeah.
So you could that I was wrong. That was the bad thing. I was a cocky motherfucker. Like, so when they would come up and they'd be like, "You made this wrong," and I would literally just start cussing them out and just raging on them, bro. Like,
you're wrong. I'm not wrong. You're wrong.
because I keep every ticket that came
Yeah.
through, and I would take that 5 extra minutes to sort through them, find the one that they're bitching about, and be like, "Here, motherfucker, you're wrong. Shut the fuck up and get out of my kitchen."
Right.
I
God,
the
I worked at Boston Market for maybe like 6, 7 months, and that was rough.
Boston Market, man, that brings back some good memories. Oh,
I will never work in the food industry ever again. Like I just Jesus, man. The toxicity alone of just like a 20-year-old kid being a manager and thinking he knows shit about life, bossing you around, bro. Oh my lord. Um,
I I was
very
mad.
frustrated working on those places.
It's hard, bro, because like it's a whole different animal.
Yep.
You got to with there's people in kitchens that have been working there longer than managers have worked there, and they probably know more than the manager, but they have to listen to him. And it's like, nah, dude, if you would just shut the fuck up, listen for one fucking bro, you would understand that you're a fucking idiot, but you won't. I like it was bad, dude. I literally I said so many hurtful things to people, and I have actually come back and like apologized to a lot of these people that I've yelled at and cussed at and shit, because like the shit that I said was, looking back, I'm like, what the where did I come up with that, first off, and like secondly, that was rude. But I almost got fired a couple times for it too. I'm surprised I didn't really, because I cussed out a manager in the middle of a rush one day. She came back there yelling at me, and I was like, listen, bitch. I will do your job. You can get the fuck out of my way. And she went and got the owner. He came back there, and it was bad. I had to learn how to do better and shit, and I wanted to learn to do better for my kids. So
I will say the only positive thing I will say about working in the food industry / retail, it taught me a lot about people, how to read people and communicating with those people. I don't think without Publix, I don't think I'd be able to be where I'm at now, because I was there. Shit, how many years did I work there? 2011 to 2006. Yeah, 6 years I worked at Publix, and in those 6 years, I went to 3 different stores. One out of the 3 store managers were pieces of shit. Like the second one, God, I was in such a bad place in my life when I went to the second store. I had to move up to a different city because I didn't have anywhere to live after my mom left for Jersey. And I didn't have anywhere to live. So I lived with my best friend at the time, and I had a really unreliable car. I couldn't wake up on time because my shifts were like 6 a.m. Then when I finally got kicked out of their house because they got a divorce, I lived with my dad, which was like 45 minutes to an hour away from that store. The amount of times I fell asleep driving to that job, so bad, bro. Like, I don't know how the hell I made it there alive, but I remember one time falling asleep from one road, and I was on another road, and I didn't remember how I got there. Like, perfectly safe. Great. Well, not safe. Don't drive asleep, guys.
Did you fall asleep, or did you dissociate the entire drive?
Yes. I've definitely fell asleep, like passed out cold one time, and my tire exploding woke me up. That was awesome. Oh yeah. I don't think I've ever gone through so many car problems in my life until I went to that store. My tire blew up. I had to try and drive through a parking lot that was flooded from a hurricane. Fucked that car up really bad, because the kid that I bought it from had like an air filter installed under the car, and the water was a lot deeper than I thought it was. So the water sucked it up and screwed up my whole engine. So that happened, and I ran out of gas driving there. Oh man, that was a mess. I don't know how the hell I was ever made full time, but Jesus, I had a lot of bad luck with cars. And excuse me, Jesus. Just a lot of anger towards myself at that time, because I just wasn't mentally in a good place at all. I think that was when I went through the breakup that I went through. She broke up with me through Facebook after 5 years. Ooh. So yeah, that was rough.
Oh no.
That's another thing, man. That's anger has dampened my perspective on relationships. Mainly because of that one, and it's crazy. Like, people were like, "Oh, I don't know how you're single. I don't know how you're single." I'm like, dude, I'm single because I'm not my parents. I don't just go out with people and then be in a relationship with them. Like, I'm not going to settle with somebody and have 3 kids. That's what my parents did. Now my parents hate each other. They have 3 kids together and they hate each other. I'm not trying to be like that. You know? And I'll never forget when they divorced either, man. Like, shit, I was 8 years old and just going back to school when that whole thing happened. Fucking crazy. Worst time of my life, I'll tell you that. But, you know, like I said, we don't have to be victims of our past. You know, we don't have to let this anger control us and whatnot. So let's talk about the different anger types, because I'm curious to hear which one you are, because I know which one I am reading them. So you got outward anger, which, you know, it's openly expressing how angry you are. Then you got the inward anger, which is more directed towards yourself, negative self-talk, self-harm, denying basic needs like food and whatnot. And then you got passive anger, which is, you know, subtle and indirect ways to express your anger, like the silent treatment, sulking, things of that nature. So out of those 3, which one do you think you are? Are you an outward angry person? Do you internalize it? Are you an asshole about it? Like,
I have 2 ways. I have 2. So I am very much inwardly, and passive. Because see, I'm not fucked up about it. You piss me off, I can sit there and not talk to you for the rest of my life, and I can look you square in the eye and not say a word. I'm fine with that. I don't care. See, that's the thing. But inwardly, most definitely inwardly, because, and people know it, because I say some off the wall shit and they just look at me like, what the fuck? Like, I'm sitting the other day and they were like, hey dude, how's it going? I was like, you know, I'm really thinking about playing a game of Russian roulette later, but
Jesus.
And they just look at me and I'm like, oh yeah, y'all don't have that kind of sense of humor. My bad. I'm good.
Dark humor, man. Dark humor, I'm telling you.
But like,
it has its place.
I do have the negative self-talk. Like, I am very much hard on myself. Tell myself I'm a piece of shit. Tell myself that I can't do shit right. Like, I'm trying to break that though, because I don't want my kids to be like that.
Yeah.
Right? It's not healthy. I apologize for everything, even if it's not my fault.
Same.
I fucking walk, if I'm walking and like or you get in my way, I apologize for being in your way. Like, I apologize for existing. Like, that's the thing. Like, my kid has picked up on that and apologizes for everything. And I'm like, my guy, it's not your fault.
See, but you and I are on the same level of thinking with the apology thing, but I think those apologies stem from trauma. We were always told to say sorry, even if shit's not our fault. You're supposed to show sympathy. Growing up, that was the only way that we were told to share sympathy, was saying sorry. Sorry for your loss. Sorry for this. Sorry.
And that caused a big ass argument between me and my biological mom, because, you know, I don't do the whole you can give everybody a hug thing or apologize for everything thing.
Right. Yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
And she's like, no, they need to apologize when they do something. I'm like, they don't. Why am I going to make him apologize for, like, y'all trained us to apologize for every fucking inconvenience that happens.
Everything, bro. It's crazy.
That apology has no fucking meaning anymore. Like,
let me tell you something my mom said to me in that span of, well, I guess all 30 years of my life, but in the span of the 3 hours she spent berating me, told me that I'm a piece of shit like my father, told me that I was never going to succeed at anything, told me, you know, this and that and the other. Then she apologizes the next day, like I'm supposed to forgive her. And again, it's like you said, that apology holds no water. And it's kind of like the love bombing conversation. You can tell somebody you love them as many
Right.
times as you want. Be like, okay, you treated your spouse like this, and you cheated on your spouse, or you lied to your spouse, whatever. And you tell them you love them. Well, you're not showing that you love me. You're not showing them that you love them. It's just kind of one of those things where I'm telling you I love you because you want to hear that I love you. I'm telling you sorry because I think that's what you want to hear, kind of thing. So I feel like whenever somebody tells me, unless I really know you, when somebody tells me that they love me, sometimes I'll reciprocate it back if I know they mean it. But like when my mom says it to me, I just say you too. Like I will never say I love you to that woman. And that's just, people might look at me in a different way now that I'm openly saying that, but I don't have a great relationship with my mom. She's manipulative, and quite frankly, she's an evil person. And I'm not proud of the relationship I have with her, but I'm proud of the fact that I have a backbone. And I definitely feel, see, I'm sarcastic because sarcasm was another one that was in there for a passive anger. I don't consider my sarcasm to be angry. I'm just sarcastic, just, kind of like the movie quotes and kind of like, anything else. I'm very sarcastic, but I don't consider it out of anger that I'm sarcastic.
I do sometimes.
It can definitely come off as, anger,
Yeah.
I guess. But if I'm sarcastic, it's either I'm just being sarcastic because that's part of my personality, or, like you said, sometimes it'll come out of an angry place, but it's not like harmful anger. It's passive.
See,
But
and I know passive isn't like the best way to go about it,
yeah,
but I most definitely I was fine by myself for fucking 12, 13 years, right? I'm fine. Like, okay, fuck me, right? Cool. I will see you. I will say hi. Because that's the thing. Like, I've known family members that will sit there, and I'm bad about this because I've picked up these toxic traits that they have, but they'll sit there and talk shit and talk down on somebody, but then go up to them and be like, hey, how are you? La da 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 da. Like,
ugh,
why?
I hate
Why?
people like that.
And I'm bad about it because like I saw that for so long that I kind of picked it up.
It was like a normal.
Yeah, I thought it was normal. My ex kind of pointed it out that it's not normal, which thank you for that. And I'm actually grateful that I have that kind of relationship with her. Like we can talk about the shit that's going on, and like we're cool with each other like that. Like, but I'm trying to work through that because like I do want to be that guy that's like, nah, fuck you. Like you walk by, hey, what's up? And I just keep going. Like, I
Yeah,
don't.
and it's kind of like you said, you don't like the confrontation either, so I get it. I
Yeah.
don't think of myself to be confrontational until it gets to that point. Like, I'll brush it off and be like, oh, you know what? He said this and whatever. I won't say anything. But again, it'll get to that point where I'll end up calling your ass out, and you're not going to like it because it's going to, it's going to come from a place of being fed up. You know, with these different types of anger, I know I've openly expressed anger before, but again, most of it's internalized. So I think I'm more of an inward angry person because, like you said, I'm really bad with negative self-talk, man. I'm fucking horrible at it. There was one that they wrote on the website that I researched it off of. They put self-harm on there for inward anger. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, how is that anger? How is that anger? Like, I had to think back to when I was really bad when I was like 14. Like, I would always wear this red ICP jacket, and nobody could ever see my arms. And I did it on purpose. Like 90-degree weather, I'd always wear a jacket. And it was always on purpose. And I used to wear ace bandages over my arms because I was really bad with self-harm. I'm not proud of the fact that I was ever at that point in my life. I quite frankly, I don't want to say ashamed, because I didn't have anybody. I felt like complete shit most of the time when I was 14, and when I was doing the self-harm, thinking back to it now, you know 16 years later, and understanding why I did it, wanting to feel something, but that was also in terms of being angry that I didn't feel anything other than, you know and this is going to be a little triggering saying this, so I apologize in advance to you guys, but feeling the edge of that blade was the only thing that I was feeling, and I was angry that that was the only thing I was feeling. We lived in a house that had very thin walls, and I punched holes in the wall because I was angry. And again, self-harm, and just beating myself up literally and mentally. So the inward anger makes a hell of a lot more sense now than it did at the time. Like, reading that kind of put me off. It kind of took me off guard a little bit because I didn't understand it. But now, as an adult and as somebody who survived a lot of the demons that I had to face, it makes sense how that comes off as inward anger, or an inward angry person.
Yeah. I never, man, I tried the self-harm thing one time. I just couldn't do it. I was very, I don't like needles, but I have tattoos.
Yeah.
So me and knives, we don't get along. That shit hurt me. But I didn't mean to get onto that. But like, the self-deprecating humor, the dark humor, that's my way of coping with it, I guess.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting you bring that up. When or if you go to watch that documentary, Jonah touches on that because he's a comedian, he's an actor.
Yeah.
And when he's in those therapy sessions, he's talking about, he has to hold back making jokes because it doesn't allow him to express how he really feels. It kind of like blankets his emotions and what he's actually feeling. Coming from somebody who's in the, I guess, position that he's in, hearing that kind of like, holy shit. Like, hearing all those jokes and understanding why you're laughing at it now makes a lot more sense. Like, haha, he said he's going to kill himself with a water gun. You know what I mean? Like, silly shit like that. But now when you actually go back and think about it, it's like he's low-key like crying for help. Like, shit, man, look at Robin Williams is probably one of the best examples of any of this stuff. For those of you who don't know, Robin Williams took his life. Arguably one of the funniest guys of that generation, and probably one of my favorite actors of all time. And he never looked like he was depressed. He never looked like he was going through anything. Then when you hear all these interviews that are all of a sudden popping up and him talking about the shit that he was going through as a comedian, like, you don't know how many of these comedians are actually going through shit, and that's their outlet of being able to express what they're going through. Like, haha, I'm going through a divorce, and you guys should all laugh with me because I'm going through a divorce. And deep down, you don't know what these guys and girls are going through. So like, I get the humor coping thing, because it doesn't allow you to feel how you want to feel, but it allows your brain to be like, okay, well, we're working through this. We're just not expressing what we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting you brought that up. Just out of curiosity, do you have a way that you cope with anger? Like, when you feel yourself getting really mad or you're having a really bad day at work, like, do you have like any routines or anything that you follow to make sure your anger doesn't get out of control or you like lash out on anybody or anything?
It was the gym.
Yeah.
Like that was my escape. I'd go, if I was having a rough day and I was just getting overwhelmed, I would look at her and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go hit the gym real quick." It's not the healthiest way, but it at least would release something.
Yeah. Right.
That's how I go about it. I would say motorcycle riding, but right now it's fucking 20 something degrees outside and I'm just not about it.
Right. Yeah, because I wrote down some of the things for that treats anger. So I was just curious to hear how you coped with your anger. For me, it's video games. Video games or movies that will usually kind of like distract me temporarily, or because sometimes, man, like during the pandemic, the lack of human interaction that I had over the last 2 years, and I know it wasn't just me. So anybody
Right.
listening, don't take that as me dismissing what you went through. Um, but the lack of human interaction that I had, just kind of like sitting in this house and not being able to talk to anybody. It's weird seeing people now. Like I go to the store and go shopping all the time and whatnot, but I don't look at people. Like my head is always looking towards the floor, or just like
Yeah.
not looking right at people anymore, and it's really weird. Um, but with anger, sometimes I'll be in the party chat with my friends, and I'll just get really mad and I'll be quiet and just play music, because music is a really really strong escape for me, especially obviously you and I listen to the same type of
Yeah.
music for the most part. um and just listening to what these guys and girls go through, and just being able to relate to whatever songs you're going through, whatever songs you're listening to at the time. um so for the treatments they have, so you have the relaxation techniques, which kind of similar to like what you go through if you're having an anxiety attack, like grounding yourself, calming yourself down, and controlling your heart rate and things of that nature.
Okay.
And then you have behavioral therapy, which I know you touched on a little bit, and I kind of sort of talked about the anger management. Um, to be honest with you, and maybe other people have had better experiences, overall, I think anger management classes are a joke. I don't think any effort gets put into anger management. Okay. So let me put it. Let me put it to a way that how it makes me feel. Anger management class reminds, or like an anger management counselor is like the PE teacher of the mental health community. They went to school to be a teacher and they became a PE teacher instead of what they wanted to do. So that's the way I look at it, and maybe that might come off as a little ignorant to some, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't feel that anger management is beneficial to anybody. Just because I don't know what it is about it, man. I just never felt like they acknowledged anything I was going through. It was just kind of like what parents do nowadays to their kids. They like, here's an iPad, we're gonna go do this. Here's an iPad, and babysit the fucking thing.
Yeah.
And your management class just gives you like, well, go do this collage and we'll talk in an hour. It's like, bro, why the fuck am I doing a collage? I'm getting mad. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's just the way that I see it. Huh?
Like, I'm here to work on my anger, but this is gonna piss me off even more.
Like you're doing a collage, like this doesn't match this. This doesn't look like it fits with this. I'm done.
God.
Um, and then you have depression and anxiety and ADHD medication. So we've talked about this on previous episodes. I'm against medication. I am not a fan of any psychological medication, just because I've seen how damaging it is to people who have done it for 20 something years. I will never make excuses for my mom for how she's treating me, but she's been taking Xanax since she was a very young kid, and it has impacted her brain to where you can like physically see it in her face that she's just not well. She just doesn't look mentally well. I know medication works for some people who have really bad anxiety or just their depression just can't seem to allow them to do anything without it. But me personally, I'm firmly against medication. I don't like the way it made me feel when I tried it once. I'll never do it again. How do you feel about medication? Like say if your kid was like 14, 15 years old and they went to the doctor and, doctor says, okay, well, they got anxiety and depression. We can prescribe them this, this, and this. Like, how do you feel about medication?
I'm not on it, or like I'm not about it. I'm me and my ex were very much on the holistic side of things.
Right.
Find a more natural way to do it. For me, there were a lot of rumors after I left my stepmom's house. I was on drugs, which was funny because when my ex talked to her about moving in with her and shit and having the kids out there,
right,
she was like, "Hey, I just need to let you know, like, your boy's harbored some hatred about this. He's never done drugs." And she was like, "Well, I just thought he did because he changed." And Chris was like, "No, like, he's never done them. Like, I know. I tried to get him to."
Jesus.
And no, that was a little dark humor joke there for anybody. Don't take that out of context. Uh, but
How dare you be funny?
right. I'm not about it just because like there's already been those rumors that people think that I was all twisted off and shit. I also know that I have a very addictive personality, so it could go south real quick.
Makes sense.
I mean, fuck, I almost rely on caffeine to make it through a day. I can make it without caffeine, and that's the thing, like the caffeine makes me feel normal. That's the caffeine will help me it doesn't get me wired. It actually fucking settles me out and calms me down.
Right.
So I don't even drink it to stay awake. I just drink it to feel normal.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think I could because I've heard of people and seen people that just get zombified on it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. I'd rather find a natural way. Like if you sit there and tell me that it's my diet that's making me feel some type of way, I'll fucking try out a new diet. I don't give a fuck. You tell me to go exercise fucking twice a day, 5 days a week, I'm on it. If you think that's gonna help me, cool. I'll try it. I will give anything a try before I resort to fucking pills and shit.
Yeah, and like I said, I've seen people who have abused pills, and unfortunately, some of those people aren't here anymore. But also, I don't like seeing people turn into zombies. Of course, you got the support groups, which there's a lot of support groups out there, guys, and I know a lot of people aren't open to support groups because you're afraid of being judged. But let me assure you that there are support groups out there that a lot of people genuinely care for you. A lot of people genuinely care about you. So that's mainly what I wanted to cover in today's podcast, was just kind of getting your insight on some of these subjects, just kind of seeing where your head was at in terms of how society looks at I guess anger and what kind of treatments are out there. Glad that I'm not the only one who feels that strongly about the medication thing, because I always feel like it's one of those topics that people get sensitive about.
They do. A lot of people do.
Yeah. Going back to the negative self-talk thing, you know, my therapist gave me a homework assignment a couple months ago, basically called the Compassionate Observer. I don't know if you've heard it on any of my podcasts. I know I've read an entry to you, so I wanted to read one on the podcast that I did on the 19th of last month, because I'm really bad with negative self-talk, and this helps a lot. I'm a really big advocate for journaling. So for anybody who's open to journaling, this is called the Compassionate Observer. So basically what the assignment is you're speaking in two voices. You're speaking for whatever emotions you're feeling at the time, you know, whether that's grief, whether that's depression, whether that's anger. And then you try to have dialogue with yourself. And I know I'm going to sound crazy, like you're like talking to yourself, and I don't consider it being crazy. It helps a lot. So first half of it is, you know, I believe this was depression speaking. Yep. Okay. So this is what I was telling you, what I said to Caleb, those, you know, those dark words that I mentioned on the early podcast. So it reads, it's been a long time since we spoke last. All that time of burying your fears, your struggles, and well, anything that keeps you up at night. At this point, you made it pretty clear to Caleb how you were feeling lately, and he lightly pushed after he lightly pushed on it. You're feeling unwanted, undeserving, undesirable, unproductive, and what do you possibly contribute anymore? So when I wrote that, I don't even remember writing that. Like, I kind of like, when I'm feeling these emotions and I start doing these journal entries, sometimes I just kind of like black out and not realize what I wrote until afterwards. So I responded with, I find it difficult to know where to start here because everything said is very valid. Let's tackle the unwanted and undesirable first. As I reached adulthood, I vowed to be nothing like my birther. Yes, being single for over a decade now is a terrible feeling, but if you went from relationship to relationship, then you would be like your birther at 48 years old, miserable, unstable, no security, and alone. Now the undeserving struggle. Comparing your situation or your life to anyone, Mikey included, you will never be happy with your accomplishments, and we can tackle unproductive at the same time. Look at what you've been able to do since the pandemic started. You have brought together an army of almost 1,600 people and a podcast that has reached international levels. It's only been out less than a year. You are accomplished. You are loved. Even if it isn't how you want to feel love right now, you are exactly where you need to be right now. I'm proud of you, and with the utmost importance, I love you. When I started writing these entries and I started adding I love you to the end of each of them, it helped me in ways I couldn't possibly explain. So for any of those who can relate to any of those words said, I highly recommend journaling. You know, Vince, you included, man. Like, I know some people aren't very sure about what they would write if they would start journaling or if they'd be any good at it. You know, I just started writing. Like, doesn't have to be anything specific. Write down what you're going through, you know, and then go back to it a week later, go back to it 6 months later. I'm like, wow, I got through that. And that's what those entries are for, man. It's to show the progress that you have made and be able to celebrate where you're at right now.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to get your thoughts on that. What did you think?
I liked it. The whole talking in 2 points of view, you know, you're writing how you feel yourself, but then you're writing from another point of view as yourself looking at yourself. Like it's powerful. It I see where it helps with the negative self-talk. Like you said, you throw in that I love you in the end. Like that's that reminder that you're more than what your thoughts think you are. You know what I'm saying? And I really like that. I'm gonna give that a shot, honestly, because like I've been wanting to journal,
Yeah.
and I just haven't figured a way of where to get started, because I got a lot of shit that's going on that I need to get out. And I know, like, I can talk to you about it, I can talk to everybody else about it, but like there's gonna come a point where it's gonna have to be talked to somebody else, and I want to be able to have those thoughts already formulated. Because when I start a conversation, I don't my mind goes 700 different areas,
Right.
and I can't stay focused on that. So I've been wanting to start journaling so I can get my thoughts out there, start getting everything formulated. And
Absolutely.
I a shot. The
Yeah,
compassionate.
it's it's definitely something you can call it whatever you want. You can call the positive uh perspective whatever you want. I think the compassionate observer is a terrific name for it, because it's something validating what you're going through, something analyzing everything you're going through, and then you finally respond with, both experience and just trying to validate everything that inner child is feeling. So it's a good way to honor your inner child, and journaling doesn't have to follow any sort of format. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a 3.5 essay due at the end of the week. It's whatever you feel comfortable with making.
Yeah.
So highly recommend it, man. I it has helped me tremendously. So at the end of every podcast, obviously, as you know, and everybody else knows, I like to read these quotes. So this one was posted on my friend Tiffany Herring, who, thank you again for allowing me to use this, Tiffany. She posted on her story. It says, "This is an affirmation for letting go," and I thought it was very appropriate for today's session. It's I release all disease from my body and welcome health, love, and happiness into my life. And I want everybody to say that affirmation to yourself, once a week or, once a month, whatever it is. And anything you put into the universe comes back to you tenfold, whether that's positive, whether that's negative. I'm a firm believer in karma. And I think you put enough good out there in the universe, it comes back to you. And I know, me personally, hate hearing the word eventually. It's probably one of my biggest trigger words in the freaking world. And it pisses me off when somebody tells me eventually. But when you put things into the universe, good starts eventually coming back to you.
Yeah.
And, I, again, thank you, Vince, for coming on another podcast and offering your perspective on this. I wish there was a little more material in the anger, but I just kind of feel like with mental health, it's kind of like a little gray smudge. Yeah, right. It's not a topic that is talked about nearly enough to have a lot of research on. So thank you again for being open and being willing to share, even if it's a little, like 1% of your story, man. I greatly appreciate you. And for all my listeners, thank you again. We're at about 600 plays on iTunes and Spotify. My last podcast did 55 views on YouTube. So again, thank you guys so very much. Forever humbled for all the support you guys give to me. As always, I will continue to try and improve and do better. And please always, always, always remember to be gentle with yourselves. Till next time, guys, take care.